Hi everyone, this is Laura Crandall, Director of Student Involvement and Leadership. Today we're here to talk to you about spring 2021 plans with a few key staff at the college. We will get started in just a few minutes while we let a few more folks into our meet. And feel free to use our chat box to ask questions. We'll monitor that, and at the end we will also give time for questions and answers. And as a reminder, we will have 3 additional sessions. So next week is about academics, study skills, academic success, some key resources on campus, like the Writing Resource Center, and we'll mention a few others. The following week is going to be about mental health. And so we'll have our counseling staff on and our student support associate, senior assistant dean. And then our final week, the week of February, on February 9th, we'll talk about spring programming for our students. So what events many of our campus leadership has in store, from career services and career fair info and resume review and all of that, to Office of International Education and Office of Inclusive OIDE, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, and Student Involvement and Leadership. And so we have a few key folks there, Centennial Programming and stuff. So we'll have a lot more sessions than just today. We try and keep these to about 60 minutes so that we can let our staff move on and save other questions in our chat. So thank you for joining us. I love that so many of you are joining. Thank you for that. All right, so it's about 7:02, so 2 minutes after. We're going to get started. So I want to first thank our panelists for being here today. We have our Vice Provost and Dean for Student Affairs who will kick us off. Dean Lombard, thank you for joining us. She will talk about arrival information, COVID testing, all of those things that I know are really front and center to get our students back on campus and very safe. So I really appreciate all of her work on that and talking with Syracuse University, again, with the goal of keeping our students safe. We'll kick it over then to our community manager, who has again kept our students very safe in Centennial Hall. You all know her, Kimberly Max. And again, we'll talk about programming specifically for Centennial and many other programmings. Our 4th session, which is Tuesday, February 9th. So I just want to point that out. I know programming is definitely on people's minds. And then we'll end with our interim provost, Dr. David Newman, who will talk about all of the academic calendar adjustments and important things like that. I do have a few slides just on financial aid and bursar info because I know that bills just went out on Friday, so there's been some questions on that. Those folks were not able to join, but they have given me some text for you all to have. So yeah, we'll get started with Dean Lombard.
Thanks so much, Laura, and welcome everyone. We're happy to have you join us. If you want to advance the first slide, Laura. Thank you so much. So we are in the final stages of getting a communication out to all of our students about the obligations, the pre-screening and the testing obligations that they will have prior to their arrival, and then also once they arrive on campus. We are following guidance from SUNY and from the state of New York in putting this information together. And it can be a little bit complicated depending on number one, where you're going to be living, and number two, where you're arriving from. So we've got a document that will be available on our website called What Students Should Know, that is many pages of information. So I'm going to be giving you the high level overview tonight. All students are required to submit a daily health screening form. This will be done through a link on our website that asks some questions about their health status. This is required for 14 days prior to your arrival, either back into Syracuse or back onto campus. The second thing that all students must do is a 7-day precautionary quarantine. So all students are asked to quarantine where they are, and then when they arrive at Centennial Hall, or when they arrive into Syracuse, if they're a non-residential student, they will attest to having completed that 7-day precautionary quarantine, and that also will be a link off our website. The testing prior to arrival is where it gets a little bit complicated, because again, it depends on, number one, where you will be living this semester, and number two, where you are arriving from. So let me start by saying that all students arriving from both New York State and the contiguous states, as well as non-contiguous states, will need to undertake COVID testing prior to their arrival. Now, Kim and her staff did a great job in putting information together for Centennial resident students. And so I would refer you to that document that all Centennial residents should have received in an email, as well as parents, families, and guarantors having received that. And it outlines, again, there's one set of requirements for students who are coming from New York and contiguous states. Those contiguous states are Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont. And then also similar set of requirements for non-contiguous states and others coming from out of the country. But the easiest thing I can tell you is that all students, regardless of where you're going to live and where you are arriving from, need to get a COVID-19 test prior to your arrival. You'll arrive, there will be a period of quarantine, again, depending on whether you're coming from a contiguous or non-contiguous state and whether you're living on or off campus, and then a follow-up test. No student is permitted to come onto campus until they have completed that testing. And for those students who cannot get testing, because we know that it's difficult to get in some communities, you have to do a 10-day quarantine in Syracuse before you come to campus. And again, there's a place, this information will be gathered by Centennial staff for our students coming from non-contiguous states, the travel restricted states, who will be arriving to go to Onondaga Community College. And it will also be gathered by Centennial staff when our New York State and contiguous state students arrive. And students who don't live in Centennial will have a link in the information that we're sending out with directions on how to upload that. So that one's a little complicated because it depends on where you're living and where you're coming from. But back to an easier one. All of our students are expected to undergo COVID testing at least once a week for all of spring semester. The only exception to this expectation is students who are residing at their permanent address, i.e. residing at home, and who have no intention of coming on or near either the ESF or Syracuse University campus for the duration of spring semester. Those students can seek an exemption to these requirements by contacting the Division of Student Affairs at an email address that we have set up for that. So the short of it is all students who are in and around Syracuse, whether you're taking all your classes online, but you're coming to campus for a lab or whatever that might be, if you're coming anywhere near campus or on campus, you are expected to get tested at least weekly at the stadium, formerly known as the Dome, at Syracuse University. And the reason we ask for our students to be tested at Syracuse University is because they have a very good turnaround time, and we get that information quickly, and it helps us to be able to keep track of that. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions that have come in, Laura, before I talk a little bit about quarantine or isolation.
Thank you. Yes, I do see one about the 14-day health screening, if you have that link yet, or will that be forthcoming?
That will be forthcoming tomorrow or the next day at the latest.
Okay. And will it be pretty accessible for students?
Yes. So we're going to have this information in a few different places. As I mentioned, we've got a long document called What Students Should Know that outlines every detail. That will be sent to students, and it will also be accessible on our COVID update site. We've got a condensed kind of high-level overview communication that will be going out to students via email. So it should be very clear, and all of the hyperlinks will be in both of those documents.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do see just two more, and then I think
Sure.
more will be in the slides. Let's see. I know the Dome is testing. Is that just for staff, or can a local ESF student get tested there?
That is for faculty, staff, and students of Syracuse University and ESF. And in fact, not only can local ESF students get tested there, but we strongly prefer that they get their testing there because of how easily we get the information from Syracuse University.
Okay. And can off-campus students be tested at the Dome prior to the start of classes, like as early as next week?
Off-campus students who have met the parameters of the travel advisory information from the state of New York, and this will also be outlined in the information that students are getting, but students who have met those, so I don't want to confuse people because there are so many details. If you're going to live in Centennial, if you're coming from a contiguous state, it's a difference in terms of the number of days that a test can be old, and so on. But students, yes, can get, the short answer is they can get tested at the Dome. I know I'm supposed to call that the stadium, but I sometimes call it the Dome still. They can get tested at the Dome. However, if students are experiencing, or faculty or staff are experiencing any symptoms whatsoever, they should not go to the Dome to be tested.
Okay, correct. Okay, so if they're experiencing any symptoms at any time during the testing each week, correct? Do not go to the Dome.
That is correct. Yep, and students will have an opportunity to explain to us why they didn't get testing for 1 week when we follow up with them. And I was experiencing symptoms is certainly a reason not to go to the Dome on a given week to get tested.
Okay. And then a question that came up was just if they do happen to get a COVID vaccine, are they then having to test each week?
Boy, that's a great question that I would have to get an answer for. I would need to consult, you know, the likelihood of a critical number of our students getting access, or others getting access to the vaccine, is not as likely as we might hope. So I would say yes, the expectation right now is that all students get tested every week.
Okay. I think that the rest are, we'll just put them in the chat just so that we move on.
Okay.
We'll have more time for question and answers too, folks.
Okay.
Do you want me to go back a slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So this question of quarantine versus isolation. Quarantining is a period of time where you don't. The best definition of quarantine and isolation that I can share with you is on the travel advisory website. Isolation, that's an easier one to back into, is when you have tested positive for COVID and you are directed either by the county health department or by one of our contact tracing staff here on campus to not have interaction with anyone and to keep yourself isolated from others. That's what's utilized when someone tests positive or is sick with COVID. A quarantine is precautionary. On our website, on the COVID website, over on the right-hand side, there is a link for students to self-report, and they are expected to self-report things like possible close exposure to COVID, as well as having been diagnosed and directed by the county to isolate or to quarantine. So that's the difference. And as I said, when I started, the guidelines for all of these expectations, but particularly for the testing component, is different for residential students versus non-residential students. And I know Kim is going to talk a little bit more about Centennial Hall here in just a minute. And then students coming from contiguous states and New York versus students coming from non-contiguous states. So what I would say is there's a lot to keep track of because some of the guidelines are from SUNY, some of the guidelines are from the New York State guidelines. But we are doing our best to put this into a digestible format that we'll be sending out to students tomorrow or the next day. So I guess I'll turn it to Kim at this point and I think she's next on the agenda to talk a little bit about Centennial. Oh, thank you for that. I had forgotten about that prompt. On a really positive note, we are undertaking a calling project starting this week called Okie Outreach. We are looking to call our lower division students, so our first year students and our sophomore students, and then our upper division students and our graduate students can opt in to request a call from us. We know that this has been a tough time for students, that fall semester was very, very challenging. We want to check in, see how students are doing, and see how we might be helpful on an individual basis. So we will be undertaking that project starting later this week. And it's a two-phase project. Faculty and staff volunteers will be making these calls, and we're really looking forward to connecting with our students.
Did you also want to just touch on the flu shot part right here?
Yes, thank you. It's hard to, because I can't control the slides to go back and forth. So ESF, as you all know, has a very close relationship with Syracuse University. Syracuse University is requiring their students to get a flu shot. Any student, any ESF student who wants to use any facility at Syracuse University, whether that's a library, the Barnes Center for Recreation, any of their dining facilities, if they're taking a class there, is required to provide proof of a flu shot. And this will also be uploaded through our website, and the link for that will be provided in the documentation that in the messaging that I've been referencing earlier. And I know it's been challenging for people to actually provide proof of a flu shot because you don't get, you know, a negative or a positive result from a flu shot. So there's often not follow-up, but we do have information from our partners who conducted flu clinics here in the fall. We know a number of our students got flu shots then. And a number of our students have gotten flu shots since they've been home or away for the winter break. There is also an ability to tell us when you got your flu shot and where you got your flu shot to stand in for documentation that you might not have. And before I move on and turn it over to someone else, I would just always say that we understand that people's concerns sometimes can be very particular and very individual. You shouldn't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you've got those questions. We have established an email address in Student Affairs specifically designed for COVID questions. It's the email address that you'll use, for example, if you're not coming to campus at all and want to request an exemption. It's covidsa@esf.edu. That's covidsa@esf.edu. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, so thank you so much. We'll switch over to Kim. So again, please keep putting your comments in. It's a little hard for me to see comments and manage the Google Slides. As you can see, I keep hitting the wrong button. So it's best to not do private right this minute, just so I don't keep messing this up. But we'll go to Kim Max and talk about Centennial Hall life.
All righty. So actually a lot of this is things that Dean Lombard has already talked about. So just in terms of dates, we are doing our travel restricted students, they're going straight to Onondaga Community College, and I'll be reaching out to those folks sometime this week. And they're gonna come in January 29th and 30th. Our New York State and contiguous state residents, they're gonna come in February 1st through 6th. I'm gonna double check all the signups. We have, I think some of our contiguous state and New York State residents have signed up for the wrong dates. So we are gonna ask people to sign up for the correct dates because we actually won't be staffed in Centennial Hall on the 29th and 30th since I and some of my staff will actually be at Onondaga Community College. So just also so that people have this on their calendars, move out will actually be on Friday, May 14th at 2 p.m. or 24 hours after your last exam, whichever is sooner. I do know that Syracuse University is going a little bit later than ESF. So we are going to be offering students who are taking Syracuse University courses until May 22nd at 2 p.m. Or they're 24 hours after their last final. And there's not gonna be any additional charge. That's just part of your semester. So signing up for, so things to bring when you come in, we are gonna need to see a photo ID. We do require face coverings within Centennial Hall at all times that you're in common spaces. We are going to take a look at the COVID-19 test results, and we're just going to need to, see either the paper copy or, on your cell phone just to make sure that it's within the correct number of days. And then again, the evidence of a flu shot. Again, similar to the non-residential students, if you can just say, I got my flu shot on this date at this place, that's gonna satisfy that requirement as well. And you can move on. Okay, so we are doing 3-hour time slots, and all of the students will have to follow all of the health and testing guidelines. No more than 70 students will be allowed to move in a single day. And we're doing that to help with social distancing. We're not doing the very defined time frames that we did in the fall. We are kind of staggering them throughout the day so that there's no, so that people are kind of spread out. Each student will have a maximum of one parent, guardian, guest, somebody with them to help them. And then those folks do need to leave at the end of those 3 hours. Again, we're trying to really reinforce the social distancing and making sure we don't have too many people from outside of the building inside. And then all of our students will have to get tested within 5 days of arrival at the stadium, and then participate in the weekly testing at Syracuse University. So the link to sign up for a move-in time is spring2021.youcanbook.me. I do ask one thing: students will get a return email as a confirmation. If you need to reschedule, in that confirmation email, there's a reschedule link. And I'm asking folks to use that instead of signing up for a second time, because if you sign up for a second time, then you're taking up a time slot that somebody else could be signing up for. So I'm just asking that people kind of move them and use that reschedule link. You can move on to the next slide. All righty, so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Newman unless there are any questions that I need to answer, Laura. So a little bit about some updates, just to make sure everybody has all of the information. Continuing this semester, there will not be any guests or visitors allowed in the building. We had extreme success with our students. We had 0 positive cases within Centennial Hall last semester, and I can count on one hand the number of people who got, who were placed in quarantine. So we want to continue that. And so these are the things that worked for us. So we aren't going to allow guests or visitors. The other thing that is going to continue to happen is students are going to have to use the main doors. I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt, but for us, that helps us make sure that it's just our residents in the building, and making sure that we're keeping our staff and students as healthy and safe as possible. Within the building, the community kitchen has been all set. So students can reserve that through our main desk. We are going to continue with not having our fitness center open. I apologize. Students are going to have to go to the Barnes Center. We just don't have the staff to keep that space as clean as it needs to be for me to feel comfortable opening it up. Like I said, our main goal is health and safety. So I want to make sure that we can do that. We are working on, and I know that we will talk about this in a later session, we are working on more student engagement and really making sure that we're doing some more programming within a safe and healthy way. But more information on that is to come. Did I miss anything?
I think that you covered most Centennial questions that I got via email or in the chat. So if you didn't get your Centennial Hall question answered, we'll just save questions at the end and we'll let our last panelists go unless there's something pressing or anything that needs to be reiterated. Feel free to ask that. I don't see any coming in, so we'll move on to clubs and stuff. We'll talk about clubs, and again, that will be in the 4th week. For example, I'm not sure what you mean by frogs, but we'll definitely talk about, we'll get more of that answered about clubs and stuff. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Newman, and we'll talk about academic updates and the shift college calendar.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Can you move it forward? There we go. So most of you have probably already heard this information. Hopefully it's not new. So we had to shift the start date for the semester from the 25th, which we had originally planned, to February 8th. And this was because of, again, our relationship with Syracuse University and the fact that they were switching over to February 8th, and the fact that somewhere between 600 and 800 of our students will be taking classes over at Syracuse University. if we get that far out of sync, we have a real problem. So we made the decision to match Syracuse University and start on February 8th. Our classes will end on May 7th, at which point students would go into getting ready for finals, and finals would take place the week of the 10th. And our plan is that some form of commencement will take place on May 15th. Right now, we don't have a clear idea as to what we're going to be able to do with commencement, whether people will be able to come, whether we will do it like we did this past December and have a virtual commencement. We don't know. Syracuse University has announced that they will have a decision at the beginning of April. I would say that's probably when we're going to have a decision as to what we're going to do. But Laura has been already planning, and we're trying to figure out where we can do these things and how we will do them. So our class classes and finals will be over on the 15th. As Kim said, there's some students will still be taking classes at Syracuse University. Their finals will be that week of the 17th. And so students who are in Syracuse University may still be, can stay in the dorms and to take those finals. As Syracuse University is going to be going 1 week longer than we will. Now, again, this has been talked about several times, but we can say it again. If you're not residing in Syracuse for the spring term, you can select the online only option in your SUNY-ESF student portal up until February 15th. So that's it, by the end of the first week of classes, to make a decision about whether you would be online only or taking classes. Now, one of the things, we had a number of concerns last semester. We went without a break the entire fall semester, and there was concern that students needed a break. And so into our schedule, we have added 2 what we're calling wellness days, one on Tuesday, March 23rd, another on Wednesday, April 21st. You'll notice those days are in the middle of the week. We don't want students to take long weekends and leave the area. The students are expected to stay in Central New York for.
You don't understand.
Excuse me. Students are expected to stay on the campus, but those days on the 23rd of March and the 21st of April, there will be no classes. Instructors have been informed to do no homework, and we may have some activities planned for them, particularly on April 21st, which is the day before Earth Day. And so there will be activities to the best of our abilities. Next slide. Now, one of the questions that a lot of people will have is sort of how we're teaching courses. And so this shows what we did in fall semester and in spring semester, and what we plan to do for this spring semester. Let me explain the different types of modalities that we have for courses. So the classic face-to-face course, we will have 95 sections of that. Those are heavily labs, and other types of courses, small in number. Then we have what we call a blended flex, in which some components of the course will be on campus, while other components will be online. And there will be another 66 of those sections. Some of the blended flex will allow students to take a fully online option. And so we have 99 of those. And then finally, the majority of our courses are going to be fully online, either fully online synchronous, in which the faculty member is lecturing and the student is expected to be there at that time, or asynchronous, in which the lecture is taped and the student can watch that lecture at their choice of a time. A big reason why we're having to do this is because of social distancing that we have to maintain in the classrooms. Normally, our largest lecture hall this semester would have been hold about 130 students, but with social distancing, it can only hold about 27 students. The biggest lecture hall that we're going to end up with is the Gateway building, which will be able, and many of you may have visited that area when you did your first visit on campus. That can hold 61 students. And so we're just incredibly hampered in our ability to do face-to-face courses because of the problem of social distancing and maintaining that. Likewise, many of our field exercises are hampered because transportation becomes complicated due to social distancing again, and that we can only put half the number of people into a vehicle that we normally would have. So, you know, these are the challenges that we've been working through. Let me see. I think those are the main issues with regards to teaching modalities. I'd be happy to answer questions about that. It is worth, you know, we had a question that came to us today about some of the things that are going on and sort of what's going to happen in the fall. And that's a long way away from here to talk about what's going to happen in the fall, but it's worth thinking about. Frankly, we don't know. That's, you know, making a prediction 8 months into the future. And I think we've learned by now that going that far in the future doesn't work out very well for us. So what I would say is we're hopeful. Many of our faculty right now, those that are doing face-to-face courses as well as TAs are going to be able to get vaccine. Hopefully, as the vaccine gets rolled out further and further, more and more people will have it. It isn't enough just to have faculty being vaccinated. The students have to be vaccinated as well. And that, you know, the hope will be that will all be done by this summer, but, you know, we don't know. So we're starting to make plans for the fall. It may look similar to what we are now, but the hope would be that we would have significantly more face-to-face courses that we could offer at that time. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about today. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Newman. I know that a question has come up about, will these classes stay as is, or is there any possibility that faculty might adjust their modality, or is it fully set and not really exceptions? Do you have kind of insight?
Yep. I made the faculty promise this time that they would not change. You know, people are making plans. This happened last semester, and I'll say that faculty got scared as things were starting to ramp up in the fall, that they weren't sure of where things were. And so some people changed their modalities to fully online. We now have a full semester of experience. The faculty know what they're doing with regards to this. And I made them promise back in November that whatever modality they put down, the students could plan that would be the modality that they would be teaching from. So what you see is what you get. So when you look onto my slice as to what the modality of a course is, that will be the modality.
Okay. And when they registered for class in December, was that set then, or when was?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had this set since early November.
Okay, so just so folks know, the modality was set in November, so your students should know and can look this up on My Slice or publicly on the spring 2021 set of course class list. I know, Dr. Newman, a question came up in email about Cranberry Lake for the summer. Do you have an answer yet on Cranberry?
Yeah, we are planning right now that we will hold both the Cranberry Lake experience as well as the summer program at Wanakena for students in the School of Resource Sustainable Resources Management. Right now, we believe that we can safely bring students to these programs and run them, and that is our plan. I don't want to say we're forced into do it, but pretty close, because if we went 2 years without offering these programs, our students would be severely hurt, and we don't want that to happen. So in speaking with the chairs of both the Sustainable Resource Management Department and Environmental Forest Biology, we think we've come to a plan that we will be able to do this.
Okay.
And realize that what this means is that students are, just like how we're having students come to campus now, they're going to have to do similar things in terms of quarantining, in terms of testing. All of those things will have to be done again to ensure safety.
Okay. And then is there a certain date that students would know by for planning if it for some reason can or cannot, sort of a draft date to have these experiences?
My presumption is that a lot of this planning is going to be handled the month of February in both of the departments as they start working with students in order to start planning for the end of May when these programs start.
Okay, thank you. I know that
Great.
I just saw yay for Cranberry. So again, we'll hold on. I just have a couple quick updates that I got from the bursar and the financial aid leaders. So as you may know, your student bills were sent out on Friday. So I know that it was a little bit delayed and bills will be due on February 15th. So just be on the lookout for that. Refunds will be processed shortly after the start of the semester. Of course, it's not a guarantee of a specific date or time frame. Domestic students, those living in the United States, will get their refund from Bank Noble. Make sure that their preference is set up to expedite receipt of the refund. So they can go on to Bank Mobile to get all that set up. International students will get a refund check from the college. And again, they need to make sure their address is up to date in Banner, which is the SUNY-ESF student portal. I would say any other questions, because there are, I know, unique situations going on. I know that some people have seen different charges on their bill, for example, but you do have some transportation fees per course that might involve transportation. I know that that came up a little bit. Trailhead meal plans, if your student did not use all their money, the money does transfer over from fall to spring. So do know that if they had remaining money over, Trailhead is still going to be open. They can use that money. If they are in Centennial Hall with meal plan requirements, they do need to keep that fee. So I know that that was some of the questions we have. If there's direct billing questions, confusion, of course, feel free to email the bursar or call them. Those are the 2 point of contacts that you would want. And we can definitely send the Bank Mobile info. I'll have to do that after. Housing will be on your student bill. So just so you know about that, housing, if you're a brand new student who has yet to sign up, I assume that will be on your bill. If you could comment on that, Kim. If you have an SU meal plan, SU parking charge for having a parking permit at SU, those will be on your SU bill, which is on myslice.syr.edu. Any new students, I do see a couple names that are familiar for new students. Parking permits are going to open starting tomorrow, so you should have gotten an email about that. if you're a student who is looking for a parking permit, outside of being a first year, you can also sign up for a parking permit tomorrow. So I know that there are some more spots open for SU right now, but do act on that on my slice. And then the last slide that we wanted to share is about financial aid. Most financial aid is scheduled to distribute or disperse to student accounts on or around February 8th. So I know that a lot of questions were, where's my financial aid, or it's not all applied. So again, financial aid is when classes start. So again, if you're confused, always email or call financial aid. Students should provide responses to each aid source offered within the financial aid package. And then I'm just reading these because I know that this is not my area of expertise and everyone's situation is a bit different. So students should then be sure to review and complete any outstanding requirements listed on the home tab of the financial aid section of the self-service portal, which is also the SUNY-ESF portal. So, you know, if your student is confused and can't see it, just have them click around in the SUNY-ESF portal. We don't see what a student sees in student affairs, so certainly if there's questions, again, just call financial aid. They're always staffed there. Okay, so question and answers. I see a few more chats have come in, so I want to be cognizant of that. I'll go through. These are just our next sessions coming up. So every Tuesday starting today for 4 weeks are these sessions. Let me just read the chat. You're also welcome to unmute and ask your question one at a time. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. When will the SU meal plans open for new students? Meal plans start, you know, I'm not sure exactly when they start. Do you have that answer, Kim? I know that with move-in dates, it's probably a little bit different. So
SU meal plans, I don't know exactly when they're going to open up. If your student is looking to opt into an SU meal plan and they're brand new, have them just send me an email. It's kamax@ESF, and I'll put it in the chat. And I will follow up and let you know when SU meal plans will be available. One deadline to know is the second Friday of classes in terms of meal plans. So the second Friday of classes, that is the deadline to reduce your meal plan. After that date, you can always go higher. So if you have a 7 meal plan, you can go up to a 14 at any point, but you can't go from a 14 to a 7 after that deadline of the second Friday. First year students, all first year students have a meal plan requirement. So please make sure to look at that. And if you have any questions, students can send me an email and I'll put my email in the chat, but students can email me and I can answer whatever questions they've got about meal plans. I don't directly administer the meal plans, but I know just enough to be dangerous. So if I need to ask somebody else some questions, I will, but I promise you I'll get some answers. But you know that I know just enough to help.
and I see a question about TH, which I assume is trailhead on the action item, but it's currently on my bill. Again, if a student has a requirement in Centennial Hall to have a meal plan, like a first year student, then they cannot cancel that for the spring. So it might be a situation like that. Or the action item may not have saved or have been live at the time. So just kind of for that particular situation, I would give us a call and we could look into that further because I don't want to give out wrong information. But there is a chance that some students want to waive because they didn't spend it, but they have to have that meal plan requirement because we want all students to have, you know, access to food, especially if they're in a double in Centennial Hall because of the meal plan requirements. In terms of refunds and TAP, I would refer you to financial aid on how to handle that. Again, that's not my area of expertise unless someone feels confident in that answer. And then I see some information about orientation. If there's any new students for orientation or joining us this spring, there's about 50-ish of you right now. You are pre-registered for classes and a lot of the new students have a pretty nice schedule. there might be a course or two you want to adjust, or credits that you didn't get your final transcript in. And so on Monday, February 1st, we will go over not just your schedule, but kind of the how-tos on how to navigate MySlice and your curriculum plan sheet, which is really your set of, this is the courses you have to take, what credits you have transferred into, so you can see your map for your curriculum here at ESF. And then spend that afternoon with your advisor or curriculum coordinator to make schedule adjustments. And, so it's really important between now and February 1st, you get those final transcripts in and you get all of your credentials set up so you know how to get into MySlice and MyESF. Because we are two different institutions, you have two separate and distinct login materials. So I'm very happy to talk to new students, especially over what those mean, because they are different. And I know that sometimes people can't get in because they're using a slightly different version of your net ID or ESF ID, which unfortunately they are not the same. And so there's some confusion there. I see a question about access to buildings. I know that the library is open and that's been in the chat. Recreation is open by appointment, I saw. Are there other things that you might want to add, Dean Lombard, about facilities for off-campus or on-campus students, what's open and accessible?
Most of the facilities that are generally open are going to be open and available, although in some cases you'll have to access things differently. So many of the offices on campus, for example, our tutoring services, our counseling services, and other offices are handling appointments by virtually, but libraries are open. The Barnes recreational facility is available for students who get a flu shot, but they have to make appointments. So most facilities will be open, but with some limitations. And I just saw a question pop up, Laura, so if I can answer it and save my fingers from typing, thank you. For people who cannot get a flu vaccine for either medical or religious reasons, there is an exemption form that you can fill out that will be available from our website. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that one. I'm just going through the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. I know that today someone had an issue getting a hold of someone, and I know that right now there are limited staffing in place, but I believe come February 8th or even sooner, there's going to be a bit more staff presence. With the numbers on the rise, I know that some staff were working more from home, but I do know that most staff are returning calls very quickly. So I'm sure that by tomorrow you'll get a call back. But if there are questions, please do put them in the chat or email us. And I know that our panelists will put their information in here for you all to have. Thank you for that, Kim, as well. Saliva testing acceptable for Centennial Hall students? Is the saliva test acceptable for Centennial Hall students? Came up.
I would need to double check on the saliva, but I do know I did get confirmation from our environmental health and safety officer that a rapid test is acceptable. I can verify on the saliva test. I'm not a testing expert, so again, just enough to be dangerous. So let me just double check with the people that actually know what they're talking about that one.
We're using the saliva test, so yes, it will count.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I think I'm caught up in the chat. So are there any other questions related to arriving on campus, COVID testing, the academic calendar and wellness days, and modality and Centennial Hall? I want to kind of encompass our panelists. And again, we have sessions the following 3 weeks as well. And again, the COVID dashboard, so right off our main page, you'll see it at the top, has all of the information for that. If someone could put the Bank Mobile info in, that would be great. I don't want to ruin the Zoom here. if there's any, I know again, there's probably more financial aid and billing information and questions out there. So again, I would encourage you to call or email them, and they're pretty responsive as well. I know that they have been experiencing a high amount of traffic right now with bills going out. So just, you know, they will get to you as soon as they can. But I just want to, I appreciate it. Thank you, Kim, for putting that information on refunds out there as well. If they need any help with it, you know, this is probably not surprising, but certainly your ID card and all of your credentials stay the same from your entire career. If you lose anything, especially your ID card, you can get a new one printed. There is a fee for reprints. But anything that they have with credentialing stays the same. Their trailhead and meal plans transfer over from fall to spring. And then at the end, when they move out in May, it's done. And then they could add a new meal plan or whatever they would want to do, again, following any meal plan requirements of Centennial Hall. We have 5 minutes left, so if you have any questions, do feel free to message one of us and we can get to you. We are recording this, so if you missed something, feel free to rewatch it. I will post this out there and put it in the family Facebook page as well. I appreciate the seeing some of the questions out there. Oh yes, we could talk about OCC for a minute. If Dean Lombard can just answer, what is quarantine at OCC like? Kind of meals and just kind of the big overview for those who may not have experienced it in the fall semester.
I'm actually going to ask Kim to hop on and talk. She knew this was coming, to come on and talk a little bit about what happens at OCC. I can say very generally, or she can fill in what I miss. Students will be assigned to a single room. They'll have 3 meals a day that will be Monday through Friday, and it's brunch and dinner on Saturday and Sunday that will be delivered to a common area and labeled for them with their dietary restrictions if they have them. There are shower facilities that are shared, and there is Wi-Fi and laundry access. As Kim said, all of that is at no additional cost to our students because that's included as part of the fees and tuition and room and board that you've already paid. It's important for you to know that there is not staff at the front desk 24 hours a day at OCC, but it's a very safe building. It's secured. You need a key to access the building, and there will be other ESF students there at the same time. They do have their security personnel walk through the building every so often. Kim, did I miss anything that you think is important for this group to know?
So the only thing is, so those folks that are going to be going to OCC to expect an email from me asking about dietary restrictions. And I'm going to do that sometime soon, just so that their staff can be ready. What we're looking for, I'm not looking for, I prefer chicken over beef. What I'm looking for is I'm allergic to shellfish, or I'm a vegan, I'm a vegetarian, those types of dietary restrictions. The other thing about OCC, because there are not staff already assigned to that space, we are asking that folks arrive between 10 and 2 because my Centennial Hall staff, myself, and then the staff that works in Centen, we will be staffing and meeting you there. So if you get waylaid, we do ask that people let us know if there's some sort of emergency that comes up, because we do, you know, it is a weekend, you know, so, and we're trying to do a lot of things and get the building ready. So we really want to be respectful of people's time and making sure that we want to welcome you, but we also want to make sure that we're getting the building ready for everybody's arrival.
A question that came up is, do we move into Centennial before going to OCC? And do students need bedding for OCC?
So for those folks that are moving into Centennial Hall for the first time, you're going to go directly to OCC, and we will assist you. There is a charter bus that will come to pick you up, and then if you need assistance getting belongings into Centennial Hall, we can help you when you get back to Centennial. Due to the quarantine and kind of all of those pieces, we can't let you bring your belongings into Centennial Hall early. Again, we're actually not staffed right now. And then in terms of bedding, I can actually provide bedding. I do have, I mean, it's not luxury in any way, shape, or form. You know, I've got blankets, I've got pillows, I've got sheets, I've got all of those things that students may need. So I will deliver that to Shapiro Hall when I go over there, and then we'll launder them and all of those things. So we can provide all of that. You know, it's not 6,000 count sheets or anything like that. It's very basic, but it'll get you through for a couple of days.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that information. Again, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. It sounds like there are no more questions that I'm seeing in the chat. I do apologize if I missed you. If I missed you, feel free to shoot it right now or one sec. But I do again want to thank you all for tuning in. I know that there is really a lot of information, and the rules of the safety precautions and extra steps we now have to help keep your students safe is there. And, you know, we appreciate having the relationship with SU to help, again, keep our campus safe. Yep, sleeping bags, that's funny, absolutely. And even sleeping right outside in the snow and getting themselves hardy for our winter here. We will have a lot more to come in the next 3 sessions. So, and we've been working on a few more things for our students, again, with programming and just talking about more academic support, because that was something that came up a bit too. So, yep. And I just want to again thank everyone. I do have one more question about taking an Uber or cab to OCC. Can they drive out? Can they drive that all the way to the OCC building, Shapiro?
Yep. So one of the things that's going to be included when I send an email to the students is the address. That the move-in document was big enough as it is, so I didn't include some of those other details. It was 11 pages to start with, so I will send that, like the address with the information that I'm sending to those specific students.
Great. All right. Thank you. That's really helpful too. And I know that there's a sign out there too for ESF that'll be out there. So, but again, thank you all so much. And hopefully we'll all see you next week for academics support and talking to some of our resources. And do feel free to have your student tune in with you if they're home still, because it's important that they hear this information too, or feel free to let them watch this later today, or I'm sorry, later tomorrow. And I'll get the link out to everyone tomorrow. All right. Thank you again. And I hope everyone has a great night.